I'm here with Scott Reed, Jason Leader, Kathleen Monk, and Shachi Kurl, the president of the Angus Reid Institute. Shachi, I'll start with you. Did anything in the cabinet shuffle strike you strategy-wise, or is it all just kind of noise compared to the big story, which is, of course, the prime minister's own future?
Well, Vashi, as you often like to say, and as I often like to say, two things can be true at the same time. So this was, I think, as Scott said, very much a get-her-done cabinet shuffle, plug the holes, try to project that government is working and is conducting the business of government, while at the same time, know what possible extra strategy could be employed here. Like at this stage, remember, we were supposed to have that big reset cabinet shuffle. Was it a year ago last summer? Very little came of that. And so this one, yes, some new names and new faces being elevated. Yes, Minister Anand, as well as others, I would anticipate putting on a very strong show and saying fighting words to really try to serve as the fire blanket, if you will, that smothers the flames that have just been burning out of control this week. But I just want to come back to one thing that we heard or didn't hear from Jagmeet Singh. And yes, he said, we're going to look to bring down the government in the next sitting. I wouldn't necessarily interpret that as soon as possible or as soon as January comes around or the minute the House sits. He's given himself lots and lots of wiggle room here. And that also is in part because his own popularity and his own career is on the line. You've already got the opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, trolling Mr. Singh, saying, you keep promising to do this. You're not going to. You haven't done it yet. Let's see when you do. And you've got Singh, who's seen his own personal popular appeal decline over the course of 2003, not increase. So, all of which to say, I know that this has been a day where people feel like they're ready to nail the final coffins into the existence and the length of time that this Liberal government continues to stand, that the Prime Minister continues to keep his job. Again, two things can be true. Long term, yes, it's terminal. Short term, let's see how many more days he can drag this out.
Kathleen, let me swing over to you on that question, because Shachi does raise a good point. The wording is very specific. We will put forward a clear motion of non-confidence in the next sitting of the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. Is your understanding that could happen any time during that sitting or as early as possible?
Well, of course, opposition confidence motions are at the government.
Their opposition days.
They have to be set by the government. And the government showed just in the fall setting how they can push those off or bring them forward if they want. So by my calculations, the earliest that opportunity could come forth for Jagmeet Singh, if the House comes back on January 27th, if there's no prorogation, would be really a month later into like late February. So that would be his earliest opportunity to present a motion like that. So it's not all in his hands. And frankly, what is, though, however, in the Democrats' hands is setting out the economic agenda that they want for Canadians. They need to quickly get their message out there about what they want to present to Canadians in the next election, that they're fighting for their values, that they're willing to take on the bully in Trump, that they actually are going to be fighting for regular people, not just the rich. So they need to do that if we are, in fact, going into elections sooner than later. And we haven't seen that right now, what their message is to Canadians.
Right. How salient, Jason, do you think the timing of the NDP's, vote to bring down or motion to bring down the government actually be? Like, does it matter exactly when they do it, or just the fact that they're now promising to do it?
They're yoked to this guy and they can't figure out how to get out of this trap of their own making, right? Like they walked into this mousetrap a couple of years ago, shut the door on themselves, ate the cheese, and they've been in this trap and they can't figure out how to get away. Mr. Singh, quote unquote, ripped up his agreement all these months ago. He's voted to keep Mr. Trudeau in power 8 times since. I will say they're desperate to distance themselves from this, like to barge pole themselves away from Mr. Trudeau and his government, and they can't do it. The problem, and this is one of the things, by the way, I'll answer your question in 1 second, but it's one of the brilliant things that Poilievre did early on was tie these two together, just yoke them together. It's like, you want to be a team? No problem. As Trudeau goes down, you go down. And so in terms of, I don't think we're coming back in late January. I think one way or another we're proroguing and there's going to be a longer time period. I think Mr. Singh is trying to buy time. Listen, he looks like somebody, he looked like he was getting bullied in those scrums this week, right? Like, are you going to bring him down? Are you going to bring him down? He looked like he didn't know what to say. And the sad part is he didn't know what to say. It took them a week to get together to draft a letter this morning morning to say, we're going to bring Trudeau down at the first earliest opportunity. And by the way, Peter Julian made that policy like 4 or 5 days ago. Who's leading this party? Mr. Singh's looked weak. He's trying to look strong. And the problem is he's yoked himself to the most unpopular politician. And we're getting to the point where it's one of the most unpopular politicians in Canadian history.
It's interesting, though, Scott, because for a long time, Jagmeet Singh was able to say, I'm going to treat it on a case-by-case basis. I'm not, here's how I'm going to handle it. I'm not going to speculate about what exactly I'm going to do 3 months from now. Like, something changed in the last 48 hours that led him to make as specific a comment as he did today, which is far more specific than anything he or his party had said previously. What do you think that is?
Weight. Crushing, heavy weight. And the weight is 67% of Canadians who don't want Mr. Trudeau to remain in position. And so Jagmeet Singh did experience that savage scrum this week, where he couldn't explain adequately to people why he would declare that he doesn't support the prime minister, but not rule out that he will support the prime minister. And the incoherence of that position, I think, resulted in today's statement. And I did notice the wording with respect to next sitting. And perhaps that leaves some ambiguity. I discount it. And the reason I discount it is that this is a fluid situation and things are hardening, not softening. And what I mean by that is that if Jagmeet Singh were to pop up in the next month or two and say that he's going to actually take the second or third most available option to bring down the government after issuing today's statement, I think he would be torn asunder, even by his own party. So I think practically he has obligated himself to this course. By the way, I'd say the same thing about the prime minister. I mean, today shows you that inaction and leaving a vacuum creates the prospects for dynamic change that works against you. So I know that the prime minister apparently wants to take Christmas. He wants to put this on pause. But increasingly, what he's going to find is that others will fill that vacuum. And the Canadians will probably grow very impatient, with this Hamlet-like routine. And that's one of the other problems that other Liberals have to think about, caucus members, is, how long can they ask the country to just sit on their laurels while they figure out how they want to proceed?